All right, today is what, March 27th, and through the magic of the internet, we are coming to you live. Uh, and it is Freehands Friday number 50, and my name is Gene, and I am joined by David Tipton and Greg Howard, our hosts, our very special guest, Kevin Key, Rob Hayner, Joseph Heating, and Steve. Um, so getting ready to wrap up almost a year of Freehands Friday. Super duper stoked to have Kevin Keith on, and who better to host the show than our good friend Greg Howard. Yay! Yay! Take it away, Greg.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Gene. Well, it's such a pleasure to get to host this event with Kevin because there are a few stick players in the world who really define like a voice, a real serious genre on the stick, and Kevin is definitely one of those people. I think of Kevin's music, I think of funk, jazz. I just think of his relaxed style and his impervious groove. And whenever somebody says to me, "Okay, Greg, but can you groove the stick?" I say, "Well, yeah, sure. Just look at this guy's video." And this guy is Kevin Keith, who's joining us from Los Angeles. Right on, Kevin. Good to see you.
Hey, thank you very much. Good to see you, Greg, and all the rest of you.
Wow. So, we meet in places all over the world, and of course, the last time I saw you was out at the Freehands Academy out in LA. But our paths have crossed so many times at so many events. I'm thinking of the San Jose seminar. I'm thinking of the Island seminar up in Vancouver. We were there. I think you were at one of the very early Michigan seminars that I did a long, long time ago. And I just think, it's so great to watch people's music change, watch their voice come out, hear their voice come out through their playing. You've got these really great recording projects that you've been working on. I particularly loved that this is EJE, the Electronic Jazz Ensemble record that you did. And so, I just want to throw some things at you about how you play. But first, I'd really like to talk about how you came to be a stick player. First off, okay, so you come to the stick from the guitar and the bass, or just one of those, or what was your entree into the stick?
It was the guitar and the bass. I started out as a guitar player when I was really little, like 7, 8 years old, and then at 15 years old, I switched to bass, and then I got my first stick at around 19. So I thought, oh yeah, this would be great. My initial attraction was I thought, okay, this will be cool because I have the range of piano with the stick, but it's still, fingers on strings and frets. So I'll be able to keep all those guitar tricks, bending, all that kind of stuff. So I thought this will be like bass and guitar combined, and I was wrong. It's a completely different animal. So initially I failed, I think, because I looked at the instrument like it was a big bass and guitar, and then when I began watching other people play it, and I play it, I began looking at it differently, and realized you have to treat this as if it's a completely different thing, and then it kind of started to work for me. So.
And I remember hearing you talk at I think at the Freehands Academy, but also at the event up on Gabriel Island, about how, from your perspective, the tuning is an essential element of the stick and how you approach playing it. Would you care to talk about that just a little bit?
Absolutely. And I think for people that have come from guitar or bass, there's this big initial inclination to try to retune it because you're locked into that world and you want to try to make this match that. Really, you need to really embrace the fist tuning. Speaking specifically, let's just start out with the left hand. Okay, if I play a chord like that, it would literally take me 2 hands to play it from the lowest note to the highest note on a piano. With stick, I can play it one-handed, and you still have one hand left over, so it gives you all this room left over. Not to mention, as far as like if I'm dealing with effects, there's some cool things about this instrument. Like there are times where I'll use a GK pickup only because I want to add effects on just these two highest strings.
Oh man, I wish I could do that.
It is the coolest thing because I began to realize with all the chords I play, without exception, the tonics are always actually in these three lowest strings. It's never these two highest. So that rule always works for me when I affect things, just the nature of the way it lands. So when you affect it that way, it pulls the sound apart, so it almost sounds like you have two instruments and you're just playing one-handed. You still have one hand left. So it really, I mean, it's unbelievable how that opens things up.
Yeah, that is a really brilliant use of the GK pickup, and if it's just, I think, another great example of how you come to this instrument and you bring a really innovative mind to the instrument as well. Like you're so comfortable with technology, in your work that you do, and any idea, it's like, oh, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. It's like you're an idea machine when it comes to the technological aspect of playing the stick too. And I just want to make a point right now. I'm counting the strings on your stick, and you're one of the few guys I know who's been playing for a really long time who still just plays a 10-string stick. Would you wax on that just a little bit for everybody, just so we can understand, gee, Kevin, how come? I mean, I played 10-string for ages and ages and ages, and I always swore I was never going to play a grand. I didn't need it. I loved the 10-string, and then I played the 12-string stick.
To be honest, my initial thought was, I need to spend time and just see if I can get 10 strings to feel right for what's in my mind, and then I'll kind of mess around with a grand. And I actually went to Emmett's for something a few years ago. And, he's got sticks laying around all over the place. And Emmett's awesome. He's like, yeah, pick it up, try it, play it. So I was trying this grand, and I really, really liked it a lot. The only thing that I think has kept me away from it is I think I would probably go to a 5 bass, 7 melody tuning, because I was kind of curious to see what it would be like to have like ultra low notes for the right hand. But for the way I play, it involves a further reach going across the board. Exactly. So it's something I experiment with, but just in my mind, I try it. I mean, I think one day.
Yeah, and you are like the primo adapter of the railboard. So nobody I know. I mean, I love the railboard, and I have one, and I play it a lot. But of all the people that I know, you were just like, yes, this is my stick. Can you talk a little bit about how the railboard is different from the wooden sticks, just in terms of how it feels to you, how it sounds? What is it about the railboard that grabs you so much?
The railboard for me, first off, was like kind of the greatest hits of all the sticks. Just the nature of the frets. God, the extra. Okay, my wood sticks don't have the. How do I say it? I think they call it the 0 fret. Basically, they don't have that one note lower. Sorry, my mind's somewhere else.
We call it the X fret.
There we go, the X fret.
So your wooden sticks are still 34-inch scale sticks.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this gave me the X fret. Plus, there's just certain things about it, like because it's metal, it's like this perfect setup. It's frozen forever, which is weird. I mean, even as a bass guitarist and a guitarist, I've never played a perfect instrument. No one has. It doesn't exist. So you just get used to kind of changing little things. Oh, yeah, I'm going down to the 10th fret. It's a little harsh here, so I have to tighten up. You learn all these things in your mind. I never had to do it with this instrument. That, and I don't know if it's because it's metal, for doing a lot of the slap stuff, it just worked. The nature of the way it sounded, it was just bright enough, but it was just deep enough.
Wait a minute. Slap stuff?
Yes, the slap stuff. Yeah.
I didn't get that. Can you do some more of that?
You should. That extra, it just works on a metal instrument. I love it.
Now, are you able to? I know you showed me this really cool trick when I saw you up at Gabriel Island, where you put your finger underneath the string and popped down to the open string. Can you do that on the railboard?
You can. I haven't messed around with it yet because of the X fret. It changes the tune.
Right, it changes the railboard. I wasn't sure because I know that span behind that X fret is not exactly to pitch. Like it would have to be just a little bit longer in order to be right on pitch. So I wasn't sure.
Exactly. I want to try to find a way to get. It'd have to be custom, but I'm looking at someone to make a capo, just for this side.
Mm-hmm.
Just goes that way I can pop things on and off, slide it down, just for some compositions I'm working on. I've been looking at a lot of these. There's a they have like a number of acoustic guitars that does a wicked capo stuff. So I just thought that'd be kind of cool to mess around with this on a stick.
I've got a capo here somewhere. I'm trying to find it. Well, no, I'm going to start knocking things over if I start looking for it, so I better not.
Bob uses a capo. I've seen I think he might have like a little mandolin capo or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I've got it's a shub capo, and it works.
But they don't work on rail boards.
Yeah, they don't. The back isn't right.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it. Now. It's like
capo, Kevin. You know that one? It's like a big clamp. You ever seen one of those?
yeah, I haven't tried one of those. I might give that a shot.
That might work because it's the tension is the but the back of the railboard is pretty smooth, so it might slip off of there.
Exactly. Plus, it's really thin, so most capos they just stop clamping once they get to a certain distance because they assume that the neck is going to have a little bit more width.
Right. Well, I think the Kaiser probably would work then because it might have the right kind of tension on it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
Could I ask a question real quick, if you don't mind me? There was something that I think that Kevin was touching on that I thought was really interesting. So, like, transitioning from like a traditional wooden instrument to a railboard, like, can you talk a little bit about that as well? Like, what's been your experience? Like, things that you do differently, things that you can do or can't do. Just I'm curious to see like how you transitioned to the railboard.
Cool. For me, there are two big things as far as the can do. It made everything just pop for me. I mean, I have really long fingers. It's kind of it's always been they've always been this way. When I was a kid, I was self-conscious. I have a buddy who's like 6'7". My fingers and his fingers are the exact same length. I don't know if I'm like a freak of nature or what. So for me, it's like just being able to get the first time I laid my hands on the railboard, they just fell in the right place.
Right. Is that just because of the extra width, or is it because of the change in the shape of the back of the board? What's the reason?
Both. The extra width and the change in the shape of the back. Plus, because it's so narrow in the back, it allows me to do. I just kind of tuck. I don't know if you can see this at all, but like the lip here, I just kind of tuck my thumb underneath it, so it's almost like. On most instruments, I'm playing like this. With the railboard, I can squeeze a little bit tighter. For the size of my hands, it makes this difference. I don't know. I'm not sure how that works out for everyone else, but man, for me, the first time I touched it, it's like, hey, wait a minute, I can play this thing. And I'll be honest, I walked in the railboard skeptical because Emmett has a lot of ideas when he says, hey, I got this idea for this metal stick. And I was thinking, dude, I don't know. But it worked for me. So.
Absolutely. Well, hey, listen, would you be willing to play a little bit of a tune for us, just so we can get a sense? I mean, we've been talking about the railboard and how it sounds, and I think it'd be great for people just to watch you play a little bit.
Absolutely. I'll play a couple of short pieces of stuff. There's a thing that I did on YouTube with a sax player named Brian Lando called Only Human. Not sure how that's coming across on the microphone, but
it sounds good. It sounds good, man.
Cool.
So, all right, just a quick reference. You're playing the classic tuning, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any tricks for people on like finding where you are, like keeping track of where you are on the board? Because you jump around a lot. It's like you really move around the board a lot, and I'm just wondering, how do you look at the board? Do you look up from the nut? Are you just looking in relation to the inlays? What is it that you look for?
All about the inlays. All about the inlays. Matter of fact, I need to. You were the first person to talk to me about the inlays that are the rectangular ones.
The linear inlays, yeah.
Inlays. I'm using the wrong words for everything. I'm renaming them and stuff. The linear ones. I would like to go to linears.
So that looks like this, just for reference point.
Yes. It's my hands can kind of cover things up. Like maybe everyone's hands are that way. So I think for me the linears that might help a bit, but for me it's all about the fret markings.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier to see where you are, I think. Especially, you like to hold your instrument fairly vertically.
Yes.
So, the higher up you are, the more you see that line across the board. You can really relate to it better, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, for me it's all about just looking at inlays. And it's weird. My left hand kind of naturally went to the stick. My right hand it looked like stone when I first got into this. So it was just getting used to moving it around. The left hand I don't even really pay that much attention to. It just kind of seems to do its own thing correctly. The right has been definitely the trickier of the two.
So can I ask you something as a bass player? I'm not a bass player, so I always try to ask people for reference points, just so I can help teach people better. When you're looking at those bass strings, are you seeing any kind of a reference to the bass as far as the pitches are concerned? Like, do you see the fourths going across the strings the other way when you look at those bass strings, or do you just know the board as a stick, as the fifths coming back towards you? Excuse me.
Greg, it's for you.
Greg, very, very good question. When I went from bass to stick, the reason I initially had so much trouble is I was trying to force it to be a bass. You know what I mean? It's almost like somebody explained to me once that was learning. A buddy of mine speaks multiple languages. He says that one of the biggest mistakes you can do is try to hear something in that language, translate it to English, and then process. He's like, you have to learn how to think, how to dream, how to crack jokes in the other language. I had to stop playing bass for about 3 years and completely learn stick all over again. Because on bass guitar, if I tell you right now, if I go da 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 da, automatically your hands get a picture of where they need to be. Well, that changed for me because I went to stick. So I was always like, okay, on stick, this is here, this is bass. I was translating. Once I put the bass down and I just immersed myself in stick, it allowed it to be a completely different thing, a completely different feel. So now my hands feel natural on stick, which is really weird when I go back to bass. Now that's weird. So.
And then you said that you played guitar when you were younger. Do you still play the guitar at all just for fun, or it's just not a part of your musical language anymore?
A little bit for fun, and to be honest, as a writer, guitar to me is kind of like I'll pick up every once in a while and play through a song, but it's almost like I treat guitar like it's a plug-in in software. It's like, oh, I need a guitar sound. Okay, I'll just play it. So I'll grab it, play what I have to play, put it back, and it might sit on the stand for another year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pick it up again. It's wow, I guess I don't play it that much. Yeah, it's pretty much just a composition tool now.
So did you ever think about getting into the NS stick?
Don Schiff has had a number of conversations. He's like, you really want to try these as a bass player. And I've thought about it. I think what I really admire the things Don does on it, because Don can think out of the box. The thing that I think has kept me from is that I already have a footprint as a bass player, so I'm going to try to superimpose. I'm afraid that I'm going to try to superimpose bass guitar ideas over the top of it, and I'm not going to allow it to be the instrument it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with this one, I'm forced, because it's a completely different instrument, so it makes me have to think out of the box and play it as what it is. And to be honest, I've been able to get so much out of this. I haven't really had the inkling, I guess, to go over to NS because I'm not unfulfilled by it. If that makes any sense, I get that's a bad term because I see Don go back and forth between sticks and NS, but for me it works.
Well, I'd like your language analogy and just apply it to different instruments, because each one has its own vocabulary and its own, we might all be from the same language family here, but there's definitely things you can say on each instrument in different ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, perfect example as a guitar, like I said, was my primary instrument. I started playing bass kind of by accident because I couldn't find bass players in bands, and then I realized I was a better bassist than a guitarist.
Yeah, you and Paul McCartney, man. There you go.
Well, it's weird. I think people are acclimated to some instruments. I mean, that instrument kind of has a voice that suits you. So I never went back to guitar because that just kind of fit. And then when I went to stick, it's like it just kind of once I got my head around it, it just kind of fit. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love bass guitar, but when I go to bass, it's like, hey, I can only play bass lines. Kind of sucks. So.
Well, so you're not just a player and not just like a technical innovator as far as playing the instrument, but you also write a lot of tunes and songs as well as tunes. And I'm thinking that some of the guys here wanted to ask you some things about that. I just wanted to throw a quick question out for you, which is when you start writing something, since you do instrumental music and vocal music, do you specifically start out saying, I'm going to write a song or I'm going to write a tune, or is it just whatever the musical idea just happens to be takes you in one of those directions specifically?
Whatever the idea takes me. A lot of times it's a vocal tune. If it's a vocal song, I'll start out hearing like a vocal thing. I almost always write without my instruments. Like, I mean, to be honest, this is the instrument I write with the most, my phone. Because I get an idea in my head, I can pull up my little recorder app, just kind of hum and into it. I'm not limited by by the ability of my hands. So at that point, once I get home, I'll play it back and I'll go, okay, and I'll try to find what's in my mind on here. But yeah, vocal tunes almost always start out with a vocal idea.
Well, I think that's really great, and I also try to do the same thing as compose a lot with my voice and take it to the instrument. Sometimes, though, we compose from the instrument too. Like there's like two different ways to arrive at very different results, I think.
Yes. There's good point. There are times where I have like voices in my head started out from the instrument. It actually started out with an exercise I was messing around with. I made a mistake, my finger got hung, and it equaled something that was kind of cool. So I thought, hey, I like the way that sounded. So then I tried to replicate it, and in learning to replicate it, an exercise was expanded on, and from that exercise, a tune was born. So.
Right. Well, I think Russell had a question he wanted to ask you, so I'm going to mute myself for a minute and let Russell do his thing.
Hey, Kevin. My question has to do with, you talked about slapping, but I'm hearing what I think is popping, and my mind can't figure out how you're doing that, because if those strings are low and you got big hands, how are you getting your fingers underneath, or how are you popping? Or is it a secret? We can cut this part out. Nobody else will know.
No problem. The secret is no.
Wait, I'm losing you, man.
Remember when I was talking about voices in my head, I had made a mistake, and like I said, my fingernail had gotten caught under a string. When I pulled my hand up, it made a perfect popping sound. Now it's like, hey, that was cool. It's basically, and this is the most odd, wrong feeling thing, at least it was for me when you first start getting it, or when you first start learning it. My thumb actually goes underneath the string. I'm not sure if you can see that at all. And it actually lifts the string up. I'm literally just catching my fingernail underneath it. what happens is you learn. I've learned how to do it in real time. So. The thing that's tricky about it, or at least I shouldn't say that. I should say the thing that's tricky about it coming from bass guitar is that when you slap on stick, it's mirror image of bass guitar. Like in bass guitar, you hit a note, then you might hit a slap. With stick, everything is the opposite. So that was a little bit weird. But yeah, it's all about. I have a lot of people in comments that will actually say, "Are you slapping that, or is that part of the track?" It's like, no, it's an actual, or I should say, popping. I'm like, it's actual in there.
Very cool. So,
Yeah.
so that thumb is trained. That thumb is trained to slap, and then to get underneath, and then with the fingernail to pop. It's working overtime. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's then there's also I'm also doing things where every now and then. Well, I actually do like two-handed. So I go back and forth. The thing is, once you get up to speed, so it's weird, but it's cool once it comes together.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just before you do that, Gene, I just wanted to say, and that's something that's made a lot easier because of the extra width of the rail board.
Yes. Yes.
Compared to the regular 10-string stick, that extra space makes that kind of stuff way easier because it's much harder to get hung up on the wrong strings. You got more room for your thumb.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something about the instrument being metal, it makes this thunderclap sound. You know what I mean? It's like, for being a bass guitarist, when you play slap, or if you've ever been in a band or standing or listen to a band where a guy's playing slap, you feel it when he lays into it. And when I first started trying to get that similar emotion into stick, I couldn't feel it. When I picked up the rail board and then I learned it through that way, now I can feel it. Now when I play through an amp, it pops out. It has the same intensity as someone who plays bass guitar, but it's still only a one-handed trick. So, I mean, it's sort of using your thumb, but you still have all your other fingers. They're just kind of floating. So that was when, like, the voices in my head, I figured out that, wait a minute, if I could do this, if I could do that, I could do this. Then it just became the process of learning how to change chords and keep the slap alive. So, it's weird, but it works.
Awesome. Right on. So, Gene,
Okay.
Perry, Mr.
Gene.
Freehands.
Okay, so for starters, I've had the pleasure of seeing Kevin play a couple times, and I like your songs. Like when I listen to your songs, I feel like I'm listening to pop music, like R&B, and it feels, it's like something that I would listen to. Like if I was in the car, I would put it on. And how do you finish songs? Like you get an idea for a song, it's like it kicks around for a while, and then you maybe you come back to it. But like talk about like finishing a song on the stick, like beginning, middle, end.
Very good question. For me, there's two processes I fight with. One is completing the composition, and then the other is completing the performance. 90% of the things that I write for stick, I can't play them when I write them. So I have to learn the song, which the songs are normally easy, just straight chords. But then in my mind, I'm hearing like this thing in the background, so then I have to learn, Oops, excuse me. Oh, one more time. It takes time to learn that, but I hear it all up front. So that's the challenge I have with myself. It's like to learn to actually compose a song might take me a couple of days inside a week just to get the arrangement and everything I want. But then it's like, well, I want to do this other thing right here, this other sound in there. Keep on keeping on was a big one. I mean, that started out with just a simple, But I heard all these, I started hearing all these things. And I'm like, if I could, I got to find a way to play it. And I always have this thing in my mind to where someone in the world could do this, therefore it's possible. So I have to learn it, you know. Plus, I watch a lot of guys on YouTube that are like these acoustic guitar players, so they're playing and then they're slapping the guitar, and it's like, well, wait a minute, he's doing all that, then there's got to be a way I can do this. So you normally just the learning part. There have been some songs that have taken me anywhere from 2 weeks to 2.5 months to actually learn. So
I remember something you shared with us. So this is really good, and I'm really, this is very helpful. Where you were, I think it might have been Keeping On, where you played it for a couple weeks and then you realized, oh, this isn't going to work. I have to do it a different way.
Yes.
Was it that song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so you have to kind of like, back to the drawing board, because it's like, I'm not the guy that can play that, so I have to kind of like.
Exactly. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. It wasn't that one. It was Voices in My Head.
Voices in My Head, and it was like that thing about with the language that you're talking about. You're not talking in that language. You have to kind of like translate it, I guess.
Exactly. I think the challenge we all face as stick players is that and we've talked about this before, where if you want to play guitar, there are all these people and this huge library of sounds and ideas and techniques you can pull from. With stick, there's only a handful of us, and we all know each other. You know, so a lot of times I'll sit down like with Voices in My Head. That line, it's got that. So I had to figure out, okay, who's going to do the? How's that going to happen? So I spent 6 months going. Just the problem is it didn't pop. It didn't jump out. Like if you played on a bass guitar, you hear those ghost notes. So I tried a million different ways to do it. I just couldn't get it to happen. And then one day I had the accident with the, and that was what I wanted. So yeah, that's the challenge. A lot of time we're having to create these techniques.
Yeah. I just want to jump in real quick here and ask you a question now. From the producer's standpoint, how do you feel the stick's sound, the envelope of the sound, the timbre of the sound is unique, and like where do those elements come from? How do they fit into the mix? Because like you said, it's not a bass, it's not a guitar, and for me, it's not just the tuning that makes that happen. There's an aspect of the tone of the instrument that's really different, and I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on the stick tone, like what's unique about it, what kind of positives and negatives do you get from that?
You know, that is a great point. The thing, the stick tone is like, it's almost, for me, it's almost something that's difficult to put into words, because like with Voices in My Head, the right hand parts, it's like no other key. That originally I thought was going to be, you know, with the moving chords. I originally thought those chords were going to be a keyboard, but I couldn't get a keyboard sound to give me what I wanted. And after messing around with, you know, because initially I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that. Once I started messing around with it, it's like the sound of the stick, the attack of it, it had the power I wanted. It had this nice, aggressive attack, but it kept sustaining. It's almost like, if I had to compare the stick, and there's no way you can compare it, but if I had to compare, I'll call moments of the stick with other instruments, I can only compare it to part of what that instrument does. Like, for example, when you first have the attack of a stick, it's almost like a clavinet. But clavinets are weird. They have this strange thing that happens when you try to sustain them. That's why the majority of, like, really successful clavinet songs, like Higher Ground, Stevie Wonder, the clavinet's heavily muted, because the attack is cool, but you can't sustain it. And the clavinet it's an awesome instrument, but it's kind of a two-trick pony. With a stick, you can do those kind of attacks, but you get all these sustains, and then you can do these. You know, when you play, you can go with the same type of attack. Then you can slur a few things and almost do like a Holdsworth kind of a sound. It's like you just can't do that on other instruments. Other instruments have like a brief moment of stick, but that's it, and then that's all they can do. You know, whereas a stick, you have all this huge library of things that you can do. I mean, I think some of the greatest stick playing is yet to come from all of us, just because we're all learning more and more about the instrument.
Yeah. Well, when I look at the waveform of the stick on a screen, it reminds me so much of a drum hit. That really sharp attack. I mean, it's just so precise. And then you have, like you said, that really incredible sustain. I mean, just play a note on the melody strings for us, just so people can hear this, because these.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to stop talking so you can do it. Go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, the way that just rings out, there are not a lot of string instruments that have that kind of quality to them. And so it's easy, from my perspective, to do too much when to put too many things on top of the stick sound, because it's got that really intense articulation and that really long sustain thing. And yet when I listen to your tracks, I hear a lot going on. So I guess what I'm wondering is, are there certain kinds of things you stay away from because of how big the stick sound is that you would otherwise do differently if you were using a bass or guitar?
With stick, there's less that I need. Like voices in my head, I have for live performance, I made like a track version of it, and when I listen to the track version of it, it doesn't sound like anything. I mean, it's just like a drum beat and some floaty stuff over here and a couple of ahs over there, and it's like, God, this is kind of a mess. It's the stick that pulls it all together. It's such a big sounding instrument, you don't need that much to write with.
Mm-hmm.
It has it all. It has all these sounds. Keep on keeping on is the same thing. I mean, if I play the tracks, like just my performance track minus the stick, it doesn't sound like anything. Some of them sound like a mess. You know, I've actually gone through and I thought, did something not record? Then I play along and it's like, it's all there. That's weird. So, yeah, it doesn't require much.
Yeah, it definitely fills a lot of space and covers a lot of ground. I think Vlad wanted to ask us a question next. Vlad, introduce yourself, man.
Hi. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
We can hear you, Vlad.
Okay, great. I was not sure about my microphone. So, I guess I can talk for many of us sickists who, want to steal your tricks. Back on Freehands Academy 2013, you gave us a couple of really nice classes talking about rhythmics, about your slap and pop technique, and about two hands chords. You played Message in the Bottle and then talked about it in details, how to play it. And unfortunately, my memory is not that good to remember all these tricks, but it's good enough to remember you told that one day you're going to record these exercises and put them on YouTube, or probably write down some exercises in sheet music and put it somewhere. And I understand that you're quite busy, but I wonder, when can we get some lessons from you?
Very good question. I have, time-wise, my life is, what's the word I'm looking for? A mess. I need to do that. I actually need to sit down and actually do some things as far as just my ideas. Even if I don't do, even if I do nothing else than just put down some of the things I've shown at Freehands Academy. Let me, I don't want to say when, because I'm famous for falling short on that, but I promise it will be sometime in the next 3 months. So that's vague, but if I'm being honest.
Kevin, even if you just did some videos, that would be really cool. I mean, if you
Exactly.
like every other week or something, you could keep guys like me and Vlad and probably everyone on this call or in the whole stick world, you have more pull than you'd think. So even if you did something just on a video, right, Mr. YouTube, come on, branding is the
I
truth,
should.
right?
You're exactly right. I should. If I'm being honest, I don't. A lot of times I don't. I look at some of the tutorials that Greg has done and some of the tutorials that Bob has done, and I just don't think my playing is that interesting a lot of time. I'm like, I'll kind of try something. I'm like, that's stupid. That's not gonna. No one's gonna be into that. So I kind of blow it off in my own head. But you're right. I should. I mean, plus, if nothing else, somebody may take the idea and take it to a place that takes the instrument into a new dimension. So.
Well, it's also because what you're doing on the railboard is so unique. Like, we haven't seen this before. So, like, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
The coolest thing about the videos is you can just do one little tiny concept, for like 2 minutes, and people will love it. Like, that's the nice thing compared to like writing a lesson book or something like that, where you feel like you got to pack all this stuff in there. It's all got to be edited and everything. With videos, you don't really have to edit yourself very much. So I'm also going to encourage you to just take a bite and go for it and just do a little something.
You know what? I definitely will. I should take like maybe a section of one of my tunes and just break down that technique. So, all right, I'll definitely do that.
You think somebody over at YouTube could help you out with that, or?
It's funny because the guys at YouTube have kind of stumbled onto my videos, which has been really awesome and really embarrassing at the same time. Because somewhat, you know how it is. It's like my whole life has been in audio. I understand that well. I'm comfortable at it. I'm kind of the weird child in the majority of jobs I've had over the last 10 years because everybody else is really, really video strong. Now I look at the stuff they do and I'm like, oh my God, I'd be embarrassed to see my videos. But they've been really, really helpful as far as they've talked about producing some stuff with me. It's like, hey, you help me with audio on mine. I'll help you with video on yours. So I think that's probably something that's going to start happening pretty soon.
Not might, will.
Oh, will happen. Actually, one of the guys talked to me about 2 days ago. So there's some stuff that will happen actually next month.
Because we'll send him this video.
Cool.
Hey, Vlad, did you have anything else? Did you want to ask Kevin some other questions there?
Not really, especially considering the limited time. And, well, 2-3 months is a reasonable ETA, so if not, probably we'll have another Free Hands Friday with Kevin and ask him again.
Sure. Hey, Vlad, what time is it out there? What time is it? What time is it out there?
It's 11 p.m. here, so it's fine. It's not that late like the previous time I joined in 4 a.m.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Well, Steve, I think Steve had a question. Can we skip to?
I think Steve did have a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. First off, Kevin, I know I haven't had a chance to talk to you, but love your stuff, obviously. Just two kind of questions in one here. First off, everything that you said about being a bass player and playing this instrument, thinking about it as a separate instrument and then coming from bass, that's something that I've experienced being a bass player as well. But I guess I'm curious as to how you think about both your hands. Do you think about them polarized and then working together? And I ask that because I listen to you play, and then I watch your videos online, and it seems like there's a very clear division of labor with your left hand and then your right hand. And I'll listen and watch you play, and then you're grooving over here with your left hand, and you bring your right hand in, and then they're together, and then they're apart, and then they're together, and it seems like there's a lot going on there. And then my other question is, who in your past in your music that has influenced you has helped you find your voice on this instrument?
Believe it or not, okay. As far as who has helped me find my voice, boy, that's Bob, Greg, Don Schiff. I'm not just saying that to be nice. To be nice, these are the people that really they made sounds on their instrument that made me say, I want to do that, and that's kind of where it started. And each of the sounds that they made is different, but it's like, hey, that's cool. And I had this moment of, hey, that's cool, and I didn't know this could make that sound. So it's like, I want to learn to do that. Beyond that, it's a lot of times guys that are non-stick players. One guy that I'm really into is Antoine Dufour. He's a guy that's on YouTube. He's an acoustic guitar player. Don Ross is another one. Those are two big guys for me because coming from the world of guitar, what they're doing technically breaks all the rules. It's just this, I don't know, they got all these sounds, they got all this stuff going, and it's like, but at the same time, they're great compositions, which is the most important, so that really inspired me as well. As far as, I'm not sure if that answer helps at all, but it's kind of it. As far as your question about how I look at each hand, I have one thing I hear the most when people comment about my playing. They're like, "How do you play all these parts on one hand and then play all these parts on the other hand?" And my answer is always the same. I don't see it as one part here and one part there. I just see it as one big part. I hear the songs as one big collective idea. So I rhythmically break my hands down and find out where that hole in time is, to where it's like, okay, there's a hole in time here, and I got one finger in the air, so I use it for that next note. Okay, got that. Then I hit the next one, was like, okay, I have this sound I hear, and I want to make it happen. All right, this finger isn't doing anything, so I'll teach him to do that. You know, it's the way I come up with my stuff is kind of like that. I don't really look at it as parts. I look at it as an overall sound, and I'm trying to find an available man to cover the task. What's really weird is when I see my videos, it's the only time I see myself playing. I mean, probably with all of us. The first time I watched Keep On Keeping On, because I recorded it, and then I played it back, and it was just like, is that what it looks like when I play? Because it looks like a mess. My hands are just going everywhere, but it's not even that I'm thinking in parts. I'm just trying to hit all the elements of the composition, if that makes any sense. So.
It does. If I could just throw a follow-up in there, do you ever mess with the tune while you're playing it? Like, do you ever, you're in the tune, and I'm not talking about like a solo section, but it is the way that you approach playing it so specific that if you try to mess with it, things are going to fall apart, or do you explore it at all?
I explore constantly. A lot of my tunes come from exploration, like with Keeping On Keeping On. You know, like the whole song started with just, and then I wanted that but then it's I don't want just, I want da 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 da. Okay, who's gonna play that other one? Then I figured out. So it's like, okay, thumb's not doing anything, so then it's just a matter of learning that. And then it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Then it's like, okay, well, that's cool, but it'd be nice if I could actually hear chord changes going underneath. So then, not chord changes, but changes in the tonic, I'm sorry. And then it just continues to grow. You know, and then it's like, well, gee, now I want to like break away with the right hand. It just goes on and on and on. So you know how it is. After you learn something, you get comfortable with it. You hear things in your head, and you just kind of go for it. So
that's cool. So, Dave, anybody else have any questions for Kevin?
I do.
You're like Mr. Stoic there. You're sitting there all muted and. Oh, Dave just left.
Uh-oh.
He might have hit the wrong button.
Well, I think a lot of people, we're losing people. What's going on here?
Greg, come on, man. Like, take it easy.
All I had to do was talk, man. All I had to do was talk.
He'll be back, I'm sure. So I think Michael Bernier has also joined us. Hey, Michael, how's it going, man?
I pressed the wrong button.
There you go. Well, now you're back. So you know we didn't want pantomime Dave, so jump on in.
So Kevin, I'm a big fan too, and I really related to what Greg said at the very beginning about like people come up to me when I'm playing and say, you know, can you get down on that? Can you, you know? And I always refer them to you, because that's the stuff. But I'm really curious about, like, so again, your relationship to the railboard. When you started playing that, how, like, in what ways did you find it pulling you maybe in another direction, or did it like cause you to like want different equipment, different amps, different EQ settings, or just musically did you feel it pulling you different places?
To be honest, for the way I play, it was the opposite. When you ask about equipment, it was the opposite. I started using less equipment. I mean, everybody's style is different. I mean, there are some guys that some guys get amazing sounds out of Les Pauls, but they can't play Strats. There are some guys where their whole sound is based around Strats. There are some instruments that just have the individual's voice in it. For me, the railboard was that way. Uh, when I play my wood sticks, they're awesome. I love them. I still use them every now and then for stuff. But when I try to get them to do things like keep on keeping on or voices in my head, then all of a sudden it's like, well, I need custom pickups. Okay, now the sound is where I want to, but I got a wolf tone on that one note, so then I got to get a compressor in. Oh, now I got to do this, and I got to do that. With the railboard, I started pulling all the gear out. It just worked on its own. When I started like really laying into it, the instrument did what I needed to do, and it was cool then because now it's like, all right, well if it'll take that, then let's try this, and it's like, hey, that works too. And it was just this love affair was born for me because it just kind of did what I needed to do without me having to, constantly, oh, on this song I need to engage this piece of gear. Oh, on that song I need to engage this. It worked for me, and I do a lot of like really, I lay in pretty hard on my left hand. The railboard just takes it.
Yeah, I got to say I found the same thing, and I've done a lot of videos with the railboard lately where I just plug into like a preamp and then into the interface, and I don't even EQ it when I'm playing it back. It's like it just sounds exactly the way I want it to sound. I don't have to mess with it at all, and that's an amazing feeling. And I'm not really sure why that is. That the pickup is pretty amazing on the railboard.
Yes, it is.
Do you mess around with any of the filtering on it at all, or do you just have like, this is my one sound and I set it there and I leave it there?
I mess around with it on the melody hand. On the right hand, it's like I have one sound that just kind of works for everything. And I've never had, the other tones are cool, but I've never had a need yet to deviate from it compositionally. The melody hand is kind of cool because the melody hand, you're hitting chords and stuff. It's kind of nice to get a different personality, or every now and then I'll need something to drive a harmonic a little bit harder. So I use it in that way. But you're right. It is. Mr. Velix did an amazing job with this. Even just plugging it in with the phantom power. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a great aspect of that pickup and a great sound, and definitely.
Can we talk about gear for a sec, Kev? Can we talk a little bit about gear, what you like to play out with, or things you've learned along the way with gear and your various different setups?
Sure. I do. This is a video I promise I will do. I need to do a video on my rig and why. Here's the thing. I did a seminar once for there's an audio group in LA called Sapphire Hollywood, and part of being a member is you have to bring in a presentation. So I brought in the stick and my stick rig, and I didn't really realize it consciously until I was doing that presentation. But okay, like when you play an electronic keyboard, right? You work in what I call preset mode, in the sense that I'm on a piano sound. Now I'm going to go to a string sound. So you hit a button, and your entire keyboard changes to a string sound. When you play as a guitarist or bassist, you play in what I call insertion mode, in that, okay, on this tune, I want a chorus. So you hit that chorus box, and it's like, okay, now for this second, I want to hit a flanger. You hit a flanger, and you pop it out. You still have your core sound, but you're just adding things in and out of it. So I began realizing, as a stick player, I need both. I need to be able to hit one button, one ring to rule them all. I need to be able to hit one button where the entire sound of my stick changes, and it gets me to that foundation I want. And then once I'm at that foundation, I want to be able to just add a little chorus, take it away, pop this in, take it away, because that's how we play stringed instruments. Especially when we solo and we chord, we do different things. So it took me about 7 to 8 years to finally find the right combination of gear that worked for me, that allowed me to do that. And it's an amazing rig. I mean, like, there's a tune on my YouTube channel called Run. I hit one button on my rig, and bang, it goes to run. And that's a really, really layered sound. I mean, everything in that YouTube video is stick, except for the drums. And it's all being played live. I mean, that's all stick. Yet I can hit one button, and that entire sound will change. Then I can hit the other button, go back to Run. And with Run, it's like I have one section where there's like these ahs. I can hit a button within that, again in insertion mode, and I can replace the ahs with strings. So in designing a rig to do that was very hard, because nobody makes things to do that. People manufacture things for guitars. People manufacture things around what's already been done. I'm trying to create things that don't. Oh, I'm not trying to create things. I'm in a position where I have to create things that don't exist. So it took time, but that will definitely be a video. Definitely.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I remember hearing Tom G talk about how it's a guitarist's world, and I routinely find myself quoting that. You know, like you don't see stick center or stick hero. It's like no, that's gonna happen. You know, like.
Okay, but I do want to jump in right now and just say there are people who are designing gear specifically for the stick.
God bless their heart.
Yes, indeed. So don't worry. There are people out there who see the need and are stepping in, and and making sure that people can take steps to make their rig what they want it to be.
We see where we're going with this, and the Step About is a welcome addition to that hardware layer of what we're all seeking. Like, it's So Kevin, have you used a Step About, or do you ever use a Step About, or would you use a Step About?
Yes, I would. I messed around with it before. Step About is amazing because there's nothing else. Okay, not just being kind, just being factual. And this is from a guy that's worked for manufacturers, that's seen product development. Step About does things that nothing else does, and it does it in real time. That's what we're lacking more than anything else. Is things that'll do stuff in real time. I mean, we're in an age, not knocking it, but we're in an age where the computer. I mean, this is the new instrument now. The laptop. Guys sit and they make their music from it, or they DJ from it, or they compose things in real time from it, they loop from it. That's great. That's awesome. But we need instruments that will do things in real time, that won't render, that will actually, I can hit a button and I can, okay, now I got this sound changed. I can hit another button and now this thing happened. And you don't have to be a genius to figure it out because you're in the moment. You want to concentrate on your playing. The Step About allows you to do that. I mean, and it sounds great. So it's like it covered two really essential bases. It allows you all this power with effects, with tone, and it's small, it's portable, and you can do it with your feet. That's another challenge we run into. All our stuff has to be played with our feet, and we don't want a whole bunch of stuff in front of us where now you're like, Mr. Toe Jam Shoegazer. You got to be able to get in and get what you need. So yeah, love that. Love that box.
Well, I gotta get Andreas to make one that has phantom-powered XLR inputs on it. See, and then I'll be able to get all you Railboard cats. Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, who is up? Gene.
Yeah, I know that we had Michael Bernier had joined us for a few minutes, and Greg, I know you're on a limited kind of schedule right now.
I got about 10 more minutes, and I got to zeke out.
Okay. Well, I did have one. If nobody else has one, does anyone else have a question? Because I'll go all day. I could ask questions.
I definitely have one.
Okay, Rob, let's go, Rob.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try not to go all day, because let me just cut at least 10 hours short and say, Kevin, you and I are coming from very similar places in a lot of ways, and I wish your time wasn't so valuable because I'd take up all of it. But what I wanted to ask you, because I don't think I'll have another chance, a couple of years ago, you were at Winter NAMM, and you were playing PreSonus demo, and you were playing in the studio live, and one of the PreSonus guys liked that a lot. My stick rig, I've got a Railboard that's coming on Monday, which by the time this airs is already here, so I love it. But I'm going to be running through my audio interface in the studio live, and I wonder, can you talk about what you use? Winter NAMM, you mentioned multi-band compression. I'm wondering, can you export your settings and put it on Stickus, something like that?
Sure, I can definitely do that. Here's the cool thing about multi-band compression is that, and this is really important to stick, is that the bass strings are not really completely bass strings because if the range of the instrument is so high, the highest 2 to 3 strings start stretching in the melodies out. So it's like, as a bass guitar player, I never realized it, but you can buy a bass compressor and it will work with a bass guitar. With stick, it works on a couple of notes, in a couple, you know what I mean? There's places where it doesn't work for you, so you can't swap that out in real time. The cool thing about multi-band compression is that it's frequency sensitive. So you can set certain things to push back differently. And the PreSonus stuff, they have a compressor that really, really works. Of course, now the name escapes me. But they had a compressor that really, really works for the left hand. And you just kind of plug it in just on the general setting, and it works. Waves is another one. Waves has a plug-in called the L316 that's amazing for left hand. Okay, the wave stuff is incredible. The challenge is pricing. The plugins aren't bad, but you need, again, we're stick players. We're playing everything in real time. If you're recording, use the wave stuff. If you're playing live, then you got to go to a sound grid solution, but at least the solutions exist. L316 is a great one for bass. What else is there with, there is the Kramer PIE compressor is an unbelievable one that Waves makes that really works well on bass. I love the plug-in stuff for recording because it's racks and racks of all this gear I could never afford now in my house, and I can have multiple copies of each. When I say copies, I mean, if I buy one hardware compressor, I have one, and I can choose wisely what I want to use it on. With plugins, limited only by the power of your computer. Just keep popping them open and put them wherever you want. So that's been real helpful. Guitar Rig has been really good too. So, playing live is a different challenge, but in the studio, those tools are amazing. I really can't say enough about the wave stuff. And that PreSonus multi-band is pretty powerful.
Well, if I can just jump in with one more note about gear, and
Sure.
that is, you were talking about the difference between preset mode and insert mode, and talking about unifying stuff in like one button press.
Yeah.
I understand you're not familiar with my massive amounts of gear research, but I've spent a lot of time researching that. And one of the cool things I found, I want to get the word out about in case anyone's interested. Allen and Heath have a digital mixer called Q16, and I don't know if the larger versions with more channels have the same feature, but the Q16 definitely has an insanely deep MIDI implementation. And you can control anything via MIDI. That means you can have one stomp that changes your high-pass filtering, your fully parametric EQ, your signal routing, and your effects parameters. And you turn off phantom power to go into passive mode. I mean, it's freaking crazy. And what I'm looking at doing, if I can afford it, is I'm going to like overhaul my audio interface in getting that mixer. And then what I'm just going to do is I'm going to run it into a power amp and into a full range cab. And I'm going to get myself some kind of MIDI foot controller, and everything's there. Absolutely everything. And in terms of like routing other effects, if I don't do MIDI rack effects, other pedals, it's a mixer. You know how many ins and outs that thing's got? I'm covered.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to put the word out.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. I use a Yamaha ONV96i for the same reason. And I absolutely love that box. Same thing. The MIDI implementation is heavy. The only thing I wish in a perfect world, because I'm never happy, is that, and Greg understands this, when Greg's done a lot of international travel, so you got to get your rig on a plane. So it's like a lot of my rigs, once I get it to sound the way I want, it's like, I can't even move this down the street to a club. How am I going to fly with it? So that being said, I wish the ONV96 came in like a 1 or 2 space rack. That way you can take it on a plane. You can put it into a small rack case and walk on this.
It's almost to the point, Kevin, where you gotta get like the universal audio interface, and just do everything in a computer, and and then just get your foot controllers so that you can do it all, But as far as schlepping hardware around, I'm so over schlepping hardware around and trying to match voltage converters, and I mean, it is truly an insane thing. And if for no other reason than the fact that the Thunderbolt interface on a Mac now or whatever, it's so fast that yes, you can play without latency, you can have all the effects that you want, and you can, carry it with you wherever you go. I just think this is a great time to be doing a lot of things with a very small footprint.
Absolutely. The computers have really, really gotten there. and I guess I guess it's just a thing I need to get over. There's part of me that's afraid to trust a computer live. You know, that's the only thing with me with these things yet, and they're there. That, and as a stick player, it's like we have all this sound coming out of one instrument. I always feel that I'm always afraid that someone's going to look and see a computer background, and it's going to equate this message to them that, oh, he's not really playing. You know what I mean? And I think everyone runs into that. I mean, at some point, you know, I think people will look at you and see your hands and hear the sound and know it's you. But I think that's just a mental step I need to get past. So, I mean, you're right. You can bring a Mac and an interface. You can do all this stuff now.
Yeah, it's true.
Glenn had that same debate. Glenn's gone back and forth between like full-on software rig or not full-on software rig, and so it's kind of fun to see how. Right, he'll go up into the attic and pull everything out. He's like, "Oh, I miss all the gear. I miss all the gear. Plug it in. It's like nice and warm. I can feel the heat coming off of it." And then he has to take it somewhere, and he's like, "I don't miss this gear. I don't miss this gear at all."
I tell you what, the one thing that I would really just suggest to anybody who wants to go this route is, if you can buy an interface that has a standard 3-pin power plug on it, then you've got it made. Because no matter where you go in the world, you're going to be able to go buy one of those cables in an electronics store, and you don't need to be schlepping around a dedicated power supply. That is really a valuable asset.
Cool. A good tip to have. Hey, we're almost at time here, so I wanted to make sure that if anyone had questions for Kevin, that they had an opportunity to ask him.
Well, I would just add about equipment if no one minds. Short question, hopefully. So, Kevin, I remember you had a really large rig with a couple of amplifiers and 2 racks of studio-grade equipment. But what's your daily rig for, daily rehearsal practice? Do you use all this equipment, or you just plug it into a small bedroom amp, or you plug into a computer interface and use plugins? Or so, what's your rig for your daily practice?
Daily practice, I plug into my mixer, and I have like no effects, because that way it makes me concentrate on my hands and my technique, and not because I'm into gear. I'll start playing around, and I have to tell myself, stop playing with that, play with this, and it forces me to practice. Then if I get an idea, it has an audio interface built into it, so I can just turn on my computer and just start recording.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Yeah, that's good to know. Right on. Hey, Greg, I know you kind of joined us late here. Did you have any questions for Kevin here? Wait, you're on mute. Yeah. Nope. Yeah.
I got a quick one, Gene.
Okay, yeah.
Greg is there. Yeah, Kevin, you have the GK on the bass side, and you mentioned using it on the top 2 strings. Did you ever use it on the lower strings, and if so, for what and how?
I use it all the time. All the time.
On the low strings.
Yeah, there are sometimes where I want too high strings. There are other times where I want the opposite effect. I want just the low strings because I want to run them through something or into some heavily synth-oriented thing. I have like 3 of the Roland GK, I call them the guitar synthesizer rigs. I have like a VG8, a VG88, and I have 2 of the V-Bass units. So like a lot of times I'll stack them and I'll split them, and a lot of it's experimentation stuff, but I've developed some really cool sounds out of that.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone actually turning off some of the strings and just using the high strings. I think that's brilliant. That's really clever.
Well, that's the thing you have to remember. Like, so when you play this chord, like I say, if I played it on piano, that's 2 hands. Well, you wouldn't run all that through the same effect. Right. That's actually, in the guitar and bass world, that's 2 different people. Yeah. And it was actually Greg, believe it or not, one of the first times I played out with Greg, which was a great piece of advice, helped me out tremendously. Thank you for that. When you had told me, the way your sound is almost like 2 different people, like a bass and guitarist, you should amplify your instrument the same. And that worked. It worked in a big way. And I realized, effect-wise, if I followed down the same road, it would also work. So there's what, like, if you listen to Keep On Keeping On, you hear sounds on the high strings that don't exist anywhere else on the instrument. It makes the compositions sound like a lot more than what they are. So.
Cool. We're just about at time here, and so I kind of want to just make a quick announcement. Let's see. Well, for starters, I have to ask the question I always ask, and we really are just almost out of time. But what advice do you have for new players, for people who've just picked up a stick or who are about to buy a stick?
Go to the web. Go to the web and go to the YouTube channels of Greg, Bob. Look at those tutorials. Look at every tutorial you can find, every lesson that you can find. Go to a seminar. The stick, I've said this before, and I really mean this. The great thing about stick is that you can go to a stick seminar and you can see the greatest stick players in the world. I mean, it's almost the equivalent of going to a guitar seminar. There's 40 people, and there's Hendrix right there, and there's Clapton right there, and there's Beck right there, and you can go talk to them. You know, people are going to look back at this period of time and go, you know, it's almost like when you look at like pictures from the 60s and it has all these huge rock stars in the same room. At the time, they were just guys that had the same passion. It's going to be the same way with stick. People are going to look back and go, oh my God, that's Greg, that's Bob, that's Don, that's all these people in the same room. I wish I could have been born then. You know, so go to the seminars because this time still exists and it's our own, so we can benefit from it.
That's cool. That's cool, Greg. Do you have anything you want to add to that before we check out here?
I just want to say I'm hoping that Kevin will get me all the information that he can about, you know, availability of his recordings, so I can help him get the word out about that, because, you know, it's all about the music. You know, we can talk about technique all day long, but what we're really talking about is making music. And so, you know, open up your ears, listen. Don't ask so much how somebody did something. Just soak it up and say, you know, I like this. This is music. This is music being made with this instrument that I want to learn how to play. So I can just soak it up, you know.
Cool.
Well, yeah, touche. Well put.
Well, I'm gonna, if it's okay. Thank you, Greg. For starters, thank you very much, Greg Howard.
Hey, my pleasure, man.
Great host. I can think of no one better or more qualified to kind of really kind of get into kind of Kevin's mindset and get the questions that we need to hear. And I also want to thank Steve, and David, and Vlad. It's good to see you guys. Greg, I'm glad you could join us. And, of course, Rob and Russell, Team FHF, in the house. We're going to release this on Friday, April 3rd. So just today, Rob made the session with Glenn Porman and Dave Broski available. So that's out there to view. And so, and then coming up, we're going to try to get Oceans on April 10th, which should be pretty bitchin'. And then on April 17th, we're going to do a live simulcast, which is going to be, actually Kevin will be performing, and I'll be performing that evening as well. Don Schiff will be there, Emmett will be there, and Bob Culbertson is in town. So a real treat. There'll be 5 of us out at the Guitar Merchant, and so if you're in Southern California, that'll be a fun place for stick music. And then on the 24th, we're gonna see what happens. We're gonna have I think we're gonna try to have K-Rex on the show and see if, you know, what kind of fun that ensues there. And then for May, we're talking to Francisco Rafart about having a Free Hands Friday in Spanish. So it will be all these great players from South America, from Chile, Argentina, Mexico, and so that's going to be kind of a different angle for us, and hopefully we can have Francisco do some translations for that. So that's what we have coming up. So again, Kevin, Greg, friends, thanks so much for participating and being here. This will be unlisted, but you can see it on your G Plus account if you want to view it before next Friday.
Oh, cool.
Thanks, Gene. Thanks, Kevin.
Hey,
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.